Are you searching for that voice of reason in these troubled times? Do some things just not make sense? We thought so too, and that's exactly how Dave, Richard, and I came together. My name is Kelsey, and the three of us are here to explore and seek the truth, expose corruption, in open mindedness, free thinking, and a desire to be empowered at the grassroots level, working with what nature has given us and protecting that from those who are exploiting it. Together, with the help of our listeners, we will sow acres of truth. You can visit our website at acresoftruth.com, and here you will find more information on how you can find us in places like YouTube, Rumble, Spotify and Apple Music, Twitter, and so much more. And welcome to our special edition series, SDG'S and What You Need to Know. Together, we will be explaining and discussing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Our mission is to educate everyday citizens about SDGs, what they are, what they mean, how the laws and policies that are and have been passed can and will affect us, not only here in Canada, but around the world. Additionally, by learning and understanding these 17 goals, we can all become one step closer in helping to affect change in this world from a grassroots perspective. My name is Kelsey from Saskatoon, along with Dave and Richard. We are Acres of Truth. Joining us is our special guest, Mark, who has been talking about the agenda for 20 years now. Welcome, gentlemen.
Greetings, Kelsey. It's Dave from Winnipeg, Ag Specialist.
Greetings, Kelsey. My name is Richard, and I'm a farmer from southern Saskatchewan.
Hi, Kelsey, Dave, and Richard. It's Mark here from Saskatoon, Director and founder of the Forum for Canadian Sovereignty.
Welcome, gentlemen, and I'm Kelsey. I'm a small business owner in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. The format of this series is for us to read the SDG, discuss the targets, and break it down for everyday people to understand. Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Ensure access to water and sanitation for all. Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene is the most basic human need for health and well-being. Billions of people will lack access to these basic services in 2030 unless progress quadruples. Demand for water is rising owing to rapid population growth, urbanization, and increasing water needs from agriculture, industry, and energy sectors. Decades of misuse, poor management, over-extraction of groundwater, and contamination of freshwater supplies have exacerbated water stress. In addition, countries are facing growing challenges linked to degraded water-related ecosystems, water scarcity caused by climate change, underinvestment in water and sanitation, and insufficient cooperation on transboundary waters. To reach universal access to drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene by 2030, the current rates of progress would need to increase fourfold. Achieving these targets would save 829,000 people annually who die from diseases directly attributable to unsafe water, inadequate sanitation, and poor hygiene practices. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Mark for further discussion.
Yeah, so here we go again. Here's another resource, and of course, water is an enormous resource, and it is a finite resource, and we have to look at it in a different sort of perspective. But it's also part of a cycle, right? So for the longest time, it's been browbeaten to us that, we don't want to waste water. When in actual fact, as you run your tap to brush your teeth, you're not wasting any water. Where's it going? It's going into the sewer, it's going into the river, and it's continuing on. And it'll, through, Mother Nature and how, the world works and how the environment works, it's going to rise up into clouds and it's going to come back down and it's going to land somewhere else and somebody else is going to use it. And so we have to look at water in those terms and understand how water works. It is finite. There is only an X amount of water on the planet, but it's about distribution. So here again, this entity, this unelected, unaccountable foreign entity that's developing cookie cutter policy for the world wants to control your water. And the water, say in Canada, they want control through global governance of that resource that we have plenty of in this country. And at the same time, though, we're watching corporations get water for free. And then they turn around and put it into plastic bottles and sell it to people to drink. And so that's, and again, that's another, expose in how, big governance and corporations come together to, abuse actually our resources. Um, and so, we have to look at it in a certain way that, again, it's this globalized world, and through global governance that they want to hoard all of the resources, including water. And we have to say no to this. We want to be in control of the water, the fresh water that we have in our country. And then you look at our prime minister, who likes to virtue signal, as we've mentioned in all previous SDGs, the virtue signaling, and how his pledge was to ensure that First Nations on reserves would all have fresh water by 2020. Well, they don't, and they're not going to, because Trudeau isn't part and committed to the people of Canada. Trudeau's committed to an unelected, unaccountable foreign entity who wants to hoard our water. He wants to give our water away and the control of our fresh water away, rather than ensuring every Canadian of every description has fresh water, and can survive with fresh, clean water. It all flies in the face of what we need to do, and we can manage this within Canada. There's no question about it. In fact, we could probably manage it provincially, even down to your own community, and ensure that people have fresh water to drink, fresh water to bathe, fresh water to cook with. We need to take that control down to the lowest common denominator. And rather than having some, again, unelected, unaccountable foreign entity dictating our usage of water, and get it out of the hands of the multinationals and the oligarchs and the monopolies, and put it back into the hands of the people. And again, this is just another in a long line of resources that they want to control. And we absolutely have to refuse and reject all of it.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. From an agriculture, standpoint, all farmers have wells and ponds as water sources, and that's what they want to do. They want to basically get a hold of the water, and they were probably going to charge us for it, right? And we seen in Saskatchewan last fall them running around, and the federal government trespassing on land, taking water samples from pastures and stuff like that, and it was horrifying. To think it's like we've been ranching out here for years, and there's no doubt about it that ranchers ensure that their water is good on their own. Take water samples and stuff. But what are they looking for, or what are they doing? And trespassing on top of it. Like that doesn't, those aren't very ethical means to come onto someone's property. It means you're kind of looking for something or planting something, in my opinion. So it's all about gaining control of every resource on the planet. So we have to basically bow to them.
You are listening to an Acres of Truth podcast. Join us in the conversation over on Twitter. Our handle there is @AcresOfTruth, or to find more episodes, visit acresoftruth.com.
Meanwhile, in New Brunswick, they're poisoning the water there to kill some fish species that they deem to be, growing too fast, and in other words, they need to control Mother Nature. They need to control everything, and they're poisoning the water system that people are trying to use and as food source and as a water source. And they're poisoning it because somebody somewhere deemed that this particular fish needs to die, so let's just poison the water. It's insane.
It's totally insane. And going back to your point on the water, I'll talk a little bit about water treatment, the gray water, the black water. what we've noticed here in Winnipeg is we're spending a whole lot more on our water to treat the black water, because we're as consumers, we've been taught to use less water and conserve water, which most are. But now at the treatment plant, we're using much harsher chemicals because there isn't that much clean water going through the system. So the trade-off we've done is we're using less water, but now we're adding more chemicals to put it back in through the system and filter and clean it. And so there has to be a metric as a cost benefit ratio. And we've run the numbers through the university setting, and it's like, yes, it sounds ridiculous to put clean water down the drain, but that's exactly what we need to do, is just keep running clean water through there, like use it for bathing showers and what have you not, or a kid spray park down at the local playground. This water isn't going to waste because it is helping the process down the line, making our water filtration more efficient and more effective with fewer chemicals. And so again, it's that backwards thinking where we neglect to look at the big picture and what's actually good for the people that are living here, versus to make it look good on a target number on a spreadsheet somewhere that you can hand to some elitist or somebody to interpret it and saying, yes, we're good stewards of the water, when we're exactly the reverse. And so to the point where Richard was saying about the agriculture, we could potentially be seeing this, and we saw this in Australia last year, where farmers have streams, rivers that are naturally flowing through their pastures, but their livestock is unable to access it because there isn't a meter on the well to meter how many gallons that livestock is going to be consuming. So it is now off limits and could be, the fines are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So
well, and that's just it. I was just going to say that it's also a funding mechanism, right? So when you put restrictions on people's water usage through taxing them or charging them more charging them more for that usage, then it becomes a funding mechanism. Then it becomes another tax. Then it becomes another expense that the families are forced to incur, especially the farmers now, because as you said, if they use the water that's running through their land, they're subject to enormous fines and tariffs.
And the fines and tariffs don't justify having the livestock. And so the farmer is going to get rid of the livestock. And in turn, the consumer is going to be saddled with higher costs for protein products or milk products, because there's fewer of it being produced. And I know that, the agenda is to reduce meat consumption and those kinds of things. So for them, it's a win-win. They get you on the water side. They'll also get you on the livestock side.
On the food side. Yep.
On the food side. But as a consumer, you are now having to go to the store and pay 2 and 3 times for that cut of meat that otherwise would be readily available and affordable and be safe and nutritious. And we look at like Hope BC and, like the Nestle water bottling plant. In certain areas, when there's extreme heat stresses for a variety of reasons, local residents do not have access to water, but the big corporation has nonstop water access, and they can pump, thousands of gallons a day, no problem. And the locals have to go, in effect, go to their supermarket and buy the water that is bottled by this particular company. But again, it's having that control and oppressing everyday citizens and making them feel the crunch of the weight of it all, because water should be, well, it is cheap and plentiful, especially in Canada here, and it should be accessible. And you're exactly right. Our First Nations, all these empty promises, and we've delivered on nothing, or the government has delivered on nothing. We've delivered water. That's what we've done. We've got tanker trucks going up to the reservations, delivering tanker trucks or, by 20-liter container nonstop. And so it is available, but it is, these children will grow up not knowing what it feels like to turn on a tap and actually brush their teeth with tap water, because it's always come from a bottle as long as they've been alive.
Are you enjoying this episode? You can find all previous episodes at acresoftruth.com.
They're making it a crisis again, aren't they, Dave? They're really making this a crisis, and that's what the government's been doing, is creating one crisis after another, and you know, for them to gain control of it. Like, water is not really a crisis, you know, with filtration, but it comes down to personal responsibility again. Like, you can put in filtrations, you can buy RO systems. That's what we have on the farm here, right? And you know, it's just, you know, being responsible, in my opinion, using the technologies that we have today. But no, I mean, they don't, because they're like, yeah, they're wanting to create, crisis. And when you look at the Colorado River and what they've done to Lake Mead in the United States, that's all due to mismanagement of that water resource. That's all that is.
Yeah, well, they're trying to save a fish farm in the ocean by pumping in fresh water. So and again, it makes no sense. It's depleting a natural resource that has, in limited quantities per annual basis, and we're not making good use of it. And in the case of our reserves, I think it keeps them on a tight leash where they have to bow down to the government policies in order to have fresh water being delivered on a weekly basis or monthly basis, whatever the schedule happens to be. And it again, it keeps that vicious cycle going where they have that codependency with the government, and it's a toxic relationship as far as I'm concerned.
Well, anytime the government sticks their nose in somewhere where it doesn't belong, and usually that's in Mother Nature, nobody should try to control Mother Nature. I mean, even this idea that we need to cool the planet. Well, if the planet needs to be cooled, Mother Nature is going to figure out the best way to do it. And usually that's by using CO2, feeding the plants that love CO2, that provide us oxygen. And the more vegetation there is, the cooler the planet's going to be. But even within that, we need heat. We need heat in the summer to create this convection that puts water vapor into the atmosphere, so we can then have rain somewhere else where we need it. And so Mother Nature needs to be left alone. And these swamp creatures that think they need to control every little thing about nature, like our water, our weather modification, and geoengineering, and all of these things, keep your paws off it. Mother Nature is going to handle this, and always has and always will. And if there's something that's changing, because the climate always changes, humanity will adapt. And if we can't adapt, well, too bad for us. But we've always been able to, and we should be able to continue to do that. And the free market and innovation and free thinking and critical thinking and problem solving and creating and building will allow us to do that if left to our own devices. So government and this enormous hyper centralization needs to go away. The less people stick their nose in where it doesn't belong, the better off we'll be.
Yeah, big government especially, and a government that's far overreaching. Like, deal with infrastructure and big projects. Governments do that in some cases not too badly, but as we've said earlier, every time our Canadian government sticks their nose into something, we're getting less than 50-cent value on it. And it's been argued that we're getting 37 cents for every tax dollar. And so where is the accountability? Where are all those missing dollars going? And we have yet to have any accountability. We have Chrystia Freeland, who's sits there smirking and snickering and trying to present a budget that she knows full well is just full of hot air. There's nothing there. And when asked about the missing money, it's like, well, it was our money and we did something with it, but we're not going to tell you what we did with it. And it's like, are you kidding me? It was never your money. It was always taxpayer money. And to the point of the earth cooling, the earth is in a cooling cycle right now. We started this about 10 years ago. So this global warming, so to speak, well, we've had to redefine it because they realize, oh, well, we aren't warming anymore. We've entered a cooling phase.
Well, and that's when they conveniently changed the narrative from global warming to climate change, because then they could apply climate change to all of the things that are happening. And it's all narrative, it's all perception, has nothing to do with reality. And we'll get into that in one of these other further SDGs for sure.
Won't we ever?
Yeah, I can't help but think of 6B is to support and strengthen the participation of the local communities, improving water and sanitation management. Like, what the hell have we been doing for the last 50 years or more? That's exactly what we've been doing. And we're 150, and we're doing it pretty well.
Let us continue to do it. Get out of our business.
A friend of mine in our local community, he was telling me about his water bill on the weekend. His water bill for a family of 5 is $157 a month for water. Now get this, he actually only used about 900 gallons of water in that month, according to the meter reading. And yes, there's garbage and recycling and all this other stuff that's on there. But when you actually kind of figure that out, I'm like, you paid $5.60 some cents a gallon for your water.
And $5.60 a gallon, you're cheaper off going to Walmart or even the Shoppers Drug Mart, because you can get a gallon for $1.99 distilled water.
But God forbid you live off grid. They don't want you off grid because then they can't take your money.
Well, and do you see what happened in like Nevada, California? All these people were setting up these rain barrel collection things. And so they completely banned them. So you could not collect water because it was needed, again, to your whole thing about how the earth has a natural flow of recycling water from rain to, evaporation and transpiration, all this stuff. And so, yeah, these people, the water was just so expensive, they circumvented that. And it's like, well, now you're creating a drought elsewhere. And again, it's just, you can't micromanage Mother Nature. It has a flow to it. You mess with it, you're going to get things that you didn't intend or expect, because she's a bitch when she bites. So don't mess with it.
That's a wrap, folks. You've been listening to an Acres of Truth special edition podcast series. We would like to thank you so much for joining us in this journey. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with others on your social media platforms. Be sure to check out our website, acresoftruth.com, for more information on other podcasts and where you can find them. Additionally, feel free to send your questions or comments to info@acresoftruth.com. Thanks again for listening.